So I go into great detail in my 4th book about the genetic engineering, because it's really the roots of racism on planet Earth. Why is there racism? Okay, well, there's the old Machiavellian divide and conquer. Well, they do it through race, they do it through gender, they'll do it through politics, whatever. I'm not here to talk about politics, but you know, this has been going on from the beginning. And we didn't evolve from apes, okay? So my take on this is very different than most people, and that is that we were genetically downgraded, okay? Because the prophecy promises to restore us, okay? So we've been told, oh, we came from apes, we evolved, and then even the ancient astronaut theory says, oh, well, it was the ancient aliens that came in and helped us go from the Neanderthals to where we are today. We have 2 strands of DNA, okay? There's 12, okay? 10 of them were disabled. That's why our geneticists look at our DNA and they go, what's that? That's junk DNA. Well, God don't make no junk, okay? So what happened was the Anunnaki, who came from Nibiru, came to Earth, and they created a slave race to replace the Ijiji, okay, who were their workers. They thought, okay, we'll use humans for that, okay? And I go into the spiritual legal ground. It's a long story about how it all happened and why it happened, which is basically a synopsis in the 1st chapter of Genesis, when the earth got cursed, and then the Lord cursed the serpent, who was actually this bipedal, luminous, very attractive being. Why else would the woman have anything to do with him? He wasn't a snake. After that, everybody got downgraded. And that's how humanity got controlled. And this is evidenced in all of our cultures. This is not just this, you know, one or the other. Everybody has this, okay? And we're all coming to the end of this, where, you know, the prophecy is that we're going to be restored to the glory body, which is what the Edemic race, Adam and Eve, had, where it says they walked in the garden with the Lord and they had everything. And here's another big piece, okay, is the 1st and 2nd book of Adam and Eve, which was deleted from the Bible. Now, if only those books were in the Bible today, we'd have a whole completely different paradigm and belief system. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So, as I included here, I'm just giving you some time to read this, the Anunnaki have to return to Earth to fix what they did wrong, okay? So in 1995, somebody said to me, oh, the gods are returning and they have karma, and they have karma with us. And I'm like, what? Karma? Gods? How does that work? Well, they're just, you know, extraterrestrial beings. They got God status because they downgraded us, and everybody thought, okay, well, they're bigger than us and they have more technology than us, so we'll call them a god. That doesn't make them really a god, okay? But for language and syntax, that's what they're called. They did manipulations. They genetically engineered a race of beings, several of them. So the Sumerian tablets basically include the Enuma Elish, which is the Epic of Gilgamesh, and the Old Testament Genesis accounts are basically parts and synopsis of those old stories. And the ancient Jews were held captive in Babylon. I'm sure people know the history here, for 70 years. So they had to listen to it every day. It was read to them every day. So when they finally penned their own Bible, which was the Torah, they repeated those stories. And the whole book of Genesis is a recount of the Enuma Elish. And as I was saying, the whole cast of characters can only really be discerned in the original Hebrew, okay? Because English is just, it's lost in translation. And there are a whole cast of characters in which I unpack in my 2nd book, Who is God? And you can see all the names. What's in a name? A lot, okay? And they identify who they are, and they're multiple gods, and they're having a drama with each other. Okay, it's like a dysfunctional family in a lot of ways, okay, fighting over us. And that's why there's contradictions. And people ask, okay, so where is ancient Samaria in the Old Testament? Well, Abraham came from the city of Ur, which was truncated for ancient Sumer. Okay, so it's just a matter of the language. And there's a lot of truncations in Hebrew, which I unpack also, just to give clarity. And this was from Sitchin's book, and he basically talked about Vulcan, Planet X, Planet Y, Septimus. So Anu was known as the father of the 50 great gods, and the god of the heavens, the lord of constellations, the king of gods, the father of spirits and demons. And Enoch described him as the lord of the spirits. The Old Testament, he's referred to as El Shaddai, also Yahuwah, which is the sacred name that Jews won't speak. Enkai and Enlil were the brothers. Yeshua comes out of Yahuwah, who basically was the son of heaven, who became the savior of the human race. And this goes way back. This is not just one story that we're all going to celebrate at Christmas, you know, when he was born, but I show in my book, and I connect 17 different gods that were all venerated on the same day, and I go, well, maybe they're all the same God, just in a different eras. Okay, so the Anunnaki are still enslaving us today. Ancient Babylon is now called in the Bible Mystery Babylon, which is the Vatican. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go through these a little because of time constraints, and I invite you to come to my table. You can look at these slides and also read the books. So here's what we're seeing. The Vatican is now in charge of two of Earth's most sophisticated telescopes called Lucifer, which is what that means. They have one in Rome and they have one in Mount Graham in Tucson, Arizona, which I've seen. Okay, and the Pope and the Jesuit priests run it, and the Pope is now all about the aliens. Okay, he wants disclosure. He wants to be the point of contact for when the alien. That's what they're doing. They're tracking aliens and Nibiru with these Lucifer telescopes. Okay, you can't make this stuff up. All right, so in the Vatican archives, they have tons of books. It's almost like, you know, the Lost Library of Alexandria. And if only we knew what was there, you know, a lot of us wouldn't be walking around like a species with amnesia, because this is what the past told us. However, okay, the Jewish traditions has always been to preserve knowledge, okay, written knowledge, oral knowledge. So, as many of you know the history, Rome persecuted the Jews. They created what's called replacement theology, which was Constantine's Creed in 350 AD, which basically became the doctrine of anti-Semitism, to reject all of these Jewish texts. Well, the Jewish texts had the history, okay? So I include them all in my books. I quote from all of these books. The first and second books of Adam and Eve is the whole story about what happened in the Garden of Eden, okay? And if only people had that today, it can be, you can relate to it, to what you go through in your daily lives, okay? Between the drama over, you know, God and Satan and angels and demons and you. And that's what they went through. And it wasn't a piece of fruit. It was a lot of different things. And the Lord saved them over and over and over again. Okay? And that's what those books basically tell. So here, you know, the Vatican, okay, this is a piece of artwork that is somehow looks just like these planets we're seeing around the sun. Okay? And why is this called the courtyard of the pine cone? Well, look at the ancient Sumerians, what they had with the pine cone. The pine cone represents the pineal gland, okay, which had to do with the opening of knowledge and awareness and connection with spirit. That's the Vatican. Okay, I know this looks busy. I wanted to get as much in there as I could, but this is ancient artwork depicting, okay, the crucifixion of Christ, the coming of Christ, the leaving of the ascension of Christ, all with spaceships. Okay? And here's, again, everything about the Vatican has roots in ancient Babylon. The only thing that happened in 350 AD was they switched out the names of the gods. They kept all of their rituals the same, and they switched out Mithras for Jesus, Semiramis for Mother Mary, and everything else stayed the same. So if you read the book of Revelation, it basically talks about Mystery Babylon, which is the Vatican, which sits on 7 hills, which is Rome, which gets destroyed in a day. By the way, that's the prophecy. Can't make this stuff up. Obviously, that was taken during the pandemic, okay? And so there's an ongoing controversy that I often get in the middle of during my work between the New Age community and the Christian fringe, because Christians think that all aliens are demons, okay? And a lot of New Agers think, well, they haven't wiped us off the earth yet, so I guess they must be benevolent. But my short answer to that is, well, there's worse things than death, okay? There are worse things than death. Enslavement is a terrible thing. People wish to die. Okay, so basically what my book series entails is a discernment, okay, between who are the good aliens and who are the evil ones, because they're both, just like humans, we're made up of both. So we can't broad brush anybody. So this, you can't make this stuff up, all right? So the prophecy tells us of a false prophet that is going to come and prop up the final Antichrist, which is, you know, at the end time war. And this is, he wages war on all of God's people, and that includes Jews, Christians, and spiritual beings who are awake and aware and who reject worshiping the beast, who he's going to force people to do through coercion. And that says that no one can buy or sell without his mark. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about what that mark is. It could be an implant, it could be a tattoo, it could be both. The COVID pandemic was just a prelude of that. So we are living in disclosure. We are in what we call drip disclosure. 2017 began it under the Trump administration, okay? And this happened recently, April of 2022. The Pentagon dumped 1,500 pages, secret documents, declassified, written by doctors that they had hired to basically write down all and document all of the physical, biological, and neurological effects that people have had when they come in contact with alien technology or alien beings themselves or ships, okay, including missing pregnancies. Has anybody seen UFO Witness on? Well, they did my story in July. It was aired in July, so I'm not going to go into it here, but if you look it up in the second season, it's about the missing pregnancies. So this, we're seeing this planet basically eclipse our sun every 28 days. It's going, and I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, and this is just to show you how the eclipse is being formed. And then it goes around the sun, we don't see it, and then 28 days it comes back. And that's why we're seeing it cyclically in the weather cams. Okay, I want to get to these videos. I'm sorry, I'm just running out of time. We're seeing wheels that look like Ezekiel's wheel. Here, let me show you this. This is from the ISS. Okay, so the ISS is basically run by 14 Earth space agencies. NASA is only one of them. So one of the ESA astronauts from Spain took this video from the ISS because this was hovering above the planet for 2 months, May and June of 21. And he just thought, okay, well, I can't keep this to myself. And God bless the whistleblowers. Otherwise, we wouldn't know half of this stuff. God knows we spend billions of dollars every year in tax money that goes to the ISS. We deserve to know what they're seeing in space. This is for real, okay? I just copied it. This has not been doctored. This has not been photoshopped. There you see the aurora above the Earth, and it gets clearer. And what you're seeing here is this huge gigantic mothership, and all these little scout ships you're going to see coming and going in and out of them. Okay? So, and there it was, sitting above the earth, May and June of 21. So I always say, is the truth stranger than fiction? Because we're getting this in science fiction to help us prepare for the reality. Oh, sorry. It does get a little clearer. And those are all little scout ships that are basically coming and going. And you can go and see this on YouTube and look at it in much more detail, but that's as clear as it pretty much gets. There's a moment of clarity. Wow. And you can see the lights moving. You can see the ships coming and going. And that one at the bottom, that's a ship. That's not part of the structure. That's going to disappear in a minute. Everybody, when I posted this on Facebook, all said, oh, it looks like the Klingon bird of prey, you know, from Star Trek. So the other thing I'm going to show you are these UFOs. Here we're seeing these two ships. They look clearly, and this was taken from Virginia, from the Earth, from an Earth telescope. This is not a space telescope. And this video was sent to the third phase of the Moon channel, so I copied it with credit to them, and so you could see it here. There it comes. Okay, now this is pretty mind-blowing too. This was SOHO. Okay, you're going to see 2012 and you're going to see 2022. This is the space telescope. April of 22. Are they fueling? The sun is full of helium and all kinds of gases. Okay, now it's just repeating. We're seeing this around the moon. And we saw it around the sun. So this is the same wheel, it seems, that Ezekiel talked about, the wheels within wheels. And here's that video. And this is from the SOHO Stereo A. And this was February 28th of 2020. Look, it looks like two objects actually. One is causing a bit of a change in the solar wind, and then the wheel is following it. As you can see, there's two things going on here. So I connect the dots in my book. You know, J.F. Blumerick was a NASA aerospace engineer who wanted to discredit and debunk von Daniken. So he went and he did all this research, and he ended up confirming von Daniken, and he wrote his own book. So Ezekiel talks about these wheels within wheels. So this is ancient space technology, UFOs in the Bible. And this is what a lot of these scriptures describe. This is obviously animation, but I'm connecting the dots to the movie Contact. Everybody remember Contact? Yeah. And that machine was actually supposed to be used in Terminator 2, but they used it for Contact. But doesn't it look just like the Ophanim? The wheels within the wheels? There it is.
Wouldn't put it past this government that a cosmic Watergate has been underway for the last, 25 years. And at the same time, I don't think it's, I think as we're growing up, or from the government's point of view, I think we've been adults for hundreds of years, but from the government's point of view, we're still growing up, and eventually they might want to tell us something about what they've discovered over the decades.
So I have a chapter in my book about the presidents and UFOs. And why am I including these two here? Well, because he started the Star Wars program, the SDI system, and he started official disclosure. Okay, I'm not here to talk about politics, but they hated both of them for that reason, okay, because they want to keep this secret. However, the Space Force was created under Trump. There's been agreements, legal agreements with our government and these aliens since World War II, which I have documented in my book. This had to do with the spoils of war, okay, that the Nazis started, and it's kind of a ongoing story, but there is no coincidence why when he went to the White House to meet with President Obama right after he was elected, it was all over the news. Every single paper, every single media, TV talked about what they talked about, high-flying assets. Okay, so something is going on in Antarctica. We should all keep our eyes on Antarctica. There's a lot of disclosure coming from Antarctica. Okay, and is it any coincidence that the X-File movies were in Antarctica? And then we have former Israeli space security chief Chaim Eshed, okay, who in 2020 came out because he's 88 years old, and he's like, what do I got to lose? And he's like, yeah, we've been in contact with the Federation, the Galactic Federation, he called it. Okay, so for years, my first book, which came out in 2012, talks about the Galactic Federation. And people mocked me and saying, oh, what do you think, it's like Star Trek? He just vindicated what I wrote in 2012 about the Galactic Federation is real. And they have been in agreements with them. They, meaning the Israeli government and the US government. And he also said, and Trump knows about it. Okay, this is all on record. This was published in what is like sort of equivalent of the New York Times in Israel. Okay, and also there's a whole book about it. So the secret space program has been going on for 75 years. This is part of why there's a cover-up, because they're preparing for a space war. The late astronaut Edgar Mitchell disclosed tons of stuff about aliens on the moon, and this is a sketch that William Tompkins, who was a lifelong aerospace engineer, was in the control room during the landing of the Apollo 11, and that was the reason why Armstrong couldn't land where they had originally wanted him to land, in the Sea of Tranquility, because he was greeted by a fleet of spacecraft. And that's what they were covering up. More spaceships. So this is part of the prophecy, you know, when there will be a great tribulation, such as has been from the beginning of the world until now. What goes on about how men's hearts will fail them, because people will see stuff that they can't explain. And it will shatter belief systems. So this is part of what disclosure is about, is to prepare us. And this is what my books are about. And this is also what some of the soft disclosure TV and film is about, to help us prepare for what will happen so we have something to relate to. We can say, oh, wow, that's just like in Star Trek. Or, now, I'm not going to have time to go into all of this. This is in my book. But this basically documents that Gene Roddenberry was friends with these two admirals and got all this technology, ideas to put into Star Trek. And he sat in on a channeler, Phyllis Schlemmer, who I met and sat in, and she basically channeled a group known as the Nine, the Council of Nine, which is where he got Deep Space Nine from. Also, the ancient Israelites started the Vulcan Live Long and Prosper, and Spock, who was of Jewish descent, basically got it from his childhood. So that became the Vulcan greeting. This was the eclipse of 2017. We're seeing two light sources. The right side is the sun being eclipsed by the moon. The left side, well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. What is that? So we saw this in Star Wars. They told every time you see the two suns. This is a recent photo. This comes from Star Wars. Truth is stranger than fiction. They're preparing us. And they also called the planets Tatooine. So I'm going to go through these just a little quick because I'm running out of time here. But basically, in my book, I talk about the sun, the solar flash, also called the solar sneeze. And we're seeing the sun doing very unusual things lately because it's being perturbed. And the language, okay, Nibiru, Nabu, it was called in Star Wars. The Zohar and the Torah talk about the red star as a harbinger of the coming of the Messiah. And this is, the Zohar is the Jewish mystical scriptures, not in the English Bible. And we're seeing that. This is all on Google Sky. These are all actual photos, except that bottom one is, I just put those two together. Truth is stranger than fiction. Look at this. Who grew up in the 60s? Hello? I'm dated here. We saw this through the Jetsons. And here, the past 2 years, that's all anybody did was video calls, right? Telemedicine, telehealth. Guardians of the Galaxy, the Space Force are now called Guardians. And yes, they have done that. They have achieved teleportation. Lockheed Martin did it. So we're there. This was dubbed the Millennium Falcon from the ISS because the astronaut who took it said, boy, it looks like the Millennium Falcon. And it just stuck. I did not take these photos. These are leaked from 1971, but if I had a camera when I saw what I saw on on the Indian Rocks Beach in the Gulf of Mexico, it was very similar to that coming out of the ocean. And this is what we're seeing in the disclosure, the TikTok videos. I'm sure people have seen that. They're all coming and going in and out of the oceans. And that's what the pilots are seeing. So I have a whole chapter in my book about the astronauts because they're under NDAs, but some of them became whistleblowers because, you know, this is important for humankind to know what's going on. And except for Armstrong, he died with his secrets, but a lot of them have spilled the beans. And this was during the pandemic. The Chinese went to the dark side of the moon and they released these photos on the internet of what looks like a spaceship. That was from Chang 3 rover. This is from the ISS. That's a picture. That's not real. This is all from the ISS. And this is from a space telescope. And that's from the Chinese on the moon. Okay, I want you to see this real quick. So take a look at this image. Okay, and this is what they're seeing outside of the ISS, this very large, long ship. And now look at that. This is from a science fiction TV series on HBO called Avenue 5. Anybody see it? It's kind of goofy, it's funny, but they put that in there. And they put a lot of stuff in there. So the truth is stranger than fiction. And this is what I call soft disclosure. Hiding in plain sight. So I'm going to go through these just a little quick because I'm running out of time here. But you can see these are all from... This was one of the first photos that NASA released in 2003 from IRIS, which was their imaging spectrograph system of Nibiru coming in. So here's the prophecy. I'm connecting the dots too. Those are actual photos from Google Sky, and I give the coordinates. So if anybody wants to look it up in their telescope, they can. The Ancient Prophecy says that there, that these 7 planets, the Torah, the Zohar, talks about the red star, the coming of the Messiah. Yeshua said there will be signs in the heavens that herald his return. These are the signs. The Sumerian Tablets promised the return of the ancient gods with Nibiru. The Greeks called it Hercubolus, the Chinese called it the Red Dragon, and they return at the end of this processional age. The Hopi prophecy said when you see the blue Kachina, the red Kachina will follow, and Wormwood says 1/3 of Earth's waters, and the kingdom will be destroyed, and the kingdom of heaven literally comes out of the heavens to land on Earth, which is like a grand mothership, which I'll show you in a minute. These are just more pictures, what we're seeing in diagrams.
So I actually have a picture of that that my friend sent me yesterday. She's in California, and she sent me a weird rainbow around the sun.
Weird rainbows.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know what this is. It's a full circle, and I'm like, what the heck? This looks so crazy.
There's a lot of weird rainbows, double rainbows, triple rainbows, rainbows going in opposite directions. What's that about? That's because these planets and this whole system is perturbing the sun.
Gives me chills.
But wait, there's more. So this just tells you about the red and blue Kachina. Planet 9. I'm going to go through these a little quick because I want to get to the end. And just thank you for your patience, all of you, and understanding. Yeah, Star Trek, remember the movie Nemesis? No coincidence there. Okay, so these are all the space telescopes. And these are all the ones focused on the sun. And there's about a dozen of them. So that's where I was getting all these pictures from. And you can go and you can look at it yourself. So, technology. There's technology up there. We have a sun simulator. We have multiple mirrors up there, okay, doing all kinds of crazy things, which are causing all kinds of reflection. Anybody knows about light? Light illuminates, light reflects, light refracts, and light obfuscates, which means, blinded by the light, which is why when people go out, sometimes the sun is so bright you can't even see. It's not like what we grew up with, which was our golden yellow sun. Now it's a bright white flashlight sun. And this is because there's all this technology up there, okay? And this was patented in the early 1960s, and it was launched in the past 15 years. The JWST telescope, well, that's out there. It's not by our sun. But these are just an example of all the different types of mirrors that are up, which are creating all these different shapes when people take pictures all around the planet. And this is also, I have a whole chapter on the legal agreements, the patents, the dates that they went up in my book, and that they're connected to SDI, weapons in space. They also serve a purpose by obscuring the eclipses. However, does anybody's technology work perfect all the time? So it's not a perfect system, which is why we're seeing stuff that they're covering up because they're not covering it up good enough. So it's coming through. If they can do this is the hand of God by our U.S. Air Force. Aren't they awesome? If they can do this, they can do that. Okay, and cloud cloaking is ancient. It's in the Bible. I have a whole chapter on it. I went and I did a Bible study on the clouds of heaven. And they're not meteorological clouds. These clouds move at great speeds. And that's what the ancients saw. They saw them come in a cloud. They saw them leave in a cloud. The Lord rode on a cloud through the heavens. So this is nothing new. This book has all those scriptures if anybody's interested.
I need to talk to you.
I like Halloween. I think it is funny that humans like decorating with other dead humans. I am pretending that this gentleman worked at a grocery store before he was murdered.
Cool. Look, I need more information on this alien race that you said is trying to take over the Earth. I was on the internet the other day, and there's something called insectoids. Like a big, giant bug person alien thing. What the hell? I do not want to be squashed by a big bug person.
The internet is wrong.
Oh. Okay. Good.
No, the insectoids, they do not squash They like to eat other beings while they are still alive and struggling.
You're not helping.
Yep. So the insectoids are in my book. There's several different types of them. I created this chart back in the 90s, and it's published in book 1. And basically, it's the cosmic drama, the real Game of Thrones, which is basically fighting over kingdoms on Earth and us, and who gets to rule. That's just part 2 of it. So you're welcome to come to my table and look at it. It's in book 1, and the whole book basically describes all these beings and star systems. And these are, you know, conversations and discussions I have about aliens, fallen angels. We are called Solarians because we live in the solar system of Sol. That's the name of our sun, so that makes us Solarians. So, you know, we're not alone here, that's for sure, and we never have been. But the gods did leave, and when they left, they created a lot of abandonment issues in humankind, which has caused all kinds of belief systems and religions, and I go into detail about who created the religions and why, and what we need to do to be prepared for when they return, and how we can discern between them, because remember, there's a conflict going on, and we're monkey in the middle, so to speak. Not monkeys, okay? We don't come from monkeys. So this is just, I'm coming to the end here. This is just about what my book series is about discerning aliens. It's basically an A to Z compendium, and the inner Earth civilizations. And my conclusion is that they've been living with us here on Earth all along. Hence all the mythologies, all of the cultural stories, and these are beings I've seen myself. That's my own artwork. So this is just, you know, truth is stranger than fiction. We've been seeing the blue beings depicted. Avatar, we have another movie coming out this December. We have the X-Men. You know, there's the Hindu gods. That was Farscape. And we're seeing these blue beings. And what are these blue beings? They live inside the earth. And why are they? Their skin is blue? Because it has to do with a level of copper in the blood and lack of sunlight. So also, this is another whistleblower who on his deathbed, okay, he had a very high security clearance, Boyd Bushman, retired scientist for Lockheed Martin, and basically shared all these photos of aliens that he had seen. And then he died. So God bless the whistleblowers. The connection, I write about the connection between alien abduction and hybrids. And there are a group of hybrids that are being formed, that are being raised underground, off-planet, and on the ships. This is one of the main purposes of the abductions, is the alien-human hybridization program, because, well, there's a lot of reasons for it, and one of them is to replace us. This is a plan to divide and conquer the human race. I don't think anybody can deny that there isn't a lot of division around, and that comes from these guys who are basically pulling strings from inside the earth. This was seen in Hubble, okay, in the 1990s. Looks like a city, and that's what's on my book cover, so that's why I have it here. But these are all Hubble photos. And a lot of people believe that's the heavenly city, talked about in Revelation 22, which is basically a giant mothership. The scripture talks about it landing on a scorched earth, 12 gates, all named after the 12 tribes. They all open up. The Lord sits in the middle, rules over the planet with an iron rod. When I read that scripture, I get visuals of Aquaman. Remember Aquaman with his trident and how he ruled over the oceans? Well, this says he rules over the whole planet when this lands on the earth at the portal. It's an ancient space portal in Jerusalem, which is why it's called the New Jerusalem. So without getting too into the holes, rabbit holes of the holes, there are holes in the poles, North Pole and South Pole. And Admiral Byrd, I have all his whole story in my book about this. But this is significant to what's going on because the Earth is like a torus. And when these energies are bathing us, it waves out. And this is what's also causing the Earth wobble and the Earth to tilt. So we're also, he also encountered the beings inside the Earth. They helped him because his plane broke down. They fixed his plane and sent him off. He wrote about it. He wrote this whole diary. It was published in National Geographic. The government bought up every single copy because they didn't want people to know about it. Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. We have J.R. Tolkien's All About the Inner Earth, and this was on the History Channel about the Crystal City discovered under Antarctica. Admiral Byrd, and he went to the South Pole too. That was his second expedition. So there's a lot going on there. So the Earth is going through a pole shift. We've moved 45 degrees. Our North Magnetic Pole used to be at the Canadian Arctic. It is now in Siberia. And that's because of all the magnetic field, which is collapsing and changing all of this. And I'm coming to an end here. Thank you so much for listening. But this is where we're ending up, is that the ancient gods, and today is the ancient civilization celebration, and they are returning to complete for their karma, so if you will, or to finish up what they left off and to have a final conflict, the end game war, the Star Wars, which the book of Revelation talks about. So I was raised Jewish. I'm not supposed to believe in Jesus, but I've seen him 6 times, and his name is Yeshua in Hebrew, and I had a near-death experience in 2010, and he told me to rewrite my book with him in it, so I did. And he said he's coming back with Nibiru. So that's, people ask me, where do I get this information from? I don't channel, I'm a researcher, but that's my backstory in case anybody's wondering. So all my books are dedicated to atheists and those wounded by religion, because hey, I'm a Jew who hasn't been wounded by religion here, and you know what they've done to us, they want to do to everybody else. We're just the canary in the gold mine, so to speak. I basically discerned that there were spirits at war, religious spirits versus the Holy Spirit, or the Great Spirit, which is what the natives called it. I have in my 4th book here, the Cherokee tribe, also about the tribes of Israel. One of them, the Cherokees, actually were part of ancient Israel because they, through oral tradition, kept the sacred name of God going here in North America. So I find that history very fascinating and how we're all connected. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. And that soul is what, the soul energy is what they are after. Okay, so after this, you're going to have some breath work to help you deal with all of this information. Please feel free to come and visit me. I'm on Facebook, and look, here, they wrote on walls, and now we write on walls. What goes around comes around. So, you know, and what I realized, and it's Halloween, so we'll see these costumes, is that we need somebody to save us because this stuff is way bigger than ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed my talk. Thank you very much for listening. And you can come and visit me at the table and look at things in more detail. Thank you. Thank you very much.